Hello, everybody. Welcome back to A Certain Point of View, our Schmoedown podcast, where we are covering everything that is the movie trivia Schmoedown from, yes, you guessed it, A Certain Point of View. My name is Jake Berlin, and I am joined today by my regular co-host, as we are on every video on this channel, Mr. Brian Avellino. How you doing over there, man?
Good. I'm ready. The dark side reigns on this podcast.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, I'm outnumbered today. I'm 100% outnumbered today. It is what it is. It'll be fun, though. Yeah, we have a very special guest. We have Laura Kelly with us today, and we're going to get to her in just a second to talk her match from last week, which we are very, very excited to discuss. But before we get to that, cool week in Schmoedown, man. A lot of cool things that are upcoming this week that you guys can see from us. If you've been following us, you guys have noticed that we're doing live breakdowns the day after matches have been airing. Like the Star Wars stuff for Twitch has been airing on Wednesdays. We get together on Thursday afternoons. We do a live breakdown of these matches, and we're going to be doing the same thing for the Inner Geekdom matches that would be coming up this week. It'll be a little different because they're released on Patreon first and then to the public later on in the week. And so more than likely, you'll see us on Wednesday for the live breakdown, possibly a little bit later in the day after the Star Wars match. But make sure you guys are looking out for that. And of course, the Star Wars ones are going to be up on Thursdays. And because those are on YouTube, you might see a reaction from us as well, a play along, which suits us because Inner Geekdom seems to be a little bit more fitting for us as we go along in these matches. Star Wars is sometimes a little too. They're a little too deep cut sometimes, and the original trivia can kind of get a little out of hand for us as far as oldie stuff. But it's going to be fun for sure with these matches coming up.
Yeah, we like to think we know Star Wars, and then we do these, and then we're like, crap. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we have a cool show as we've been mentioning, and we're gonna talk about a lot of cool things with our guest. And let's go ahead and bring her in real quick. Let me go adjust these. We do have Laura Kelly joining us. How's it going over there?
Hi, it's going really well. I'm here in Chicago, and I'm here in my, as you can see, my recording studio slash bedroom. And yeah, it's all good. How are you guys?
We're good. We're in we've been in heat wave California, but as of recently, it's kind of been a little bit of an overcast, rainy California. So California's given us the switcheroo very much lately, which is kind of bugging me, to be honest. It was dumping yesterday, like absolutely dumping. At least where I am, Brian. I don't know what it's like in Sacramento for you.
It didn't have a drop, and we're like 20 minutes away. So
of course,
yeah.
How's Chicago
California
going?
is weird. Chicago is fantastic. It's really, really chilly today, which is great. I have my window open, so if you hear any cars honking, motorcycles going by or anything, I apologize. But yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous, and we don't get a ton of that here in Chicago because it gets very humid and very disgusting very quickly. So I'm just gonna soak it up.
Yeah, I that definitely makes sense. It was nice to get away from the 100-degree weather here, but the dumping rain from yesterday, where I was anyway, was awful because I was actually sitting outside at a restaurant when it was dumping rain, and I had to run and sign my check as quickly as possible before I could get soaking wet.
Oh, lucky you. You guys have restaurants open already? That's cool.
Yeah, the county that I'm in opened up. It was the first county in our area to actually open up, and they've been slow. And that was like 2 weeks ago, but I had to take my time getting out there, wearing masks and stuff like that. But yeah, it's nice to kind of go back a little bit of normalcy.
Very nice.
All right.
As much as possible.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we usually start we start this show off with a question for our guest, and it changes from guest to guest depending on what their journey has been like in the Schmoedown. For you, for people who may not have know about your beginnings of the Schmoedown, first of all, how did you kind of get involved? And two, why is the Schmoedown so important and such like a big deal in the community?
Well, I got involved really as sort of an extension of Star Wars Celebration. So in April 2019, when Celebration happened, me and my friend Alice were sort of gearing up to launch a Star Wars podcast at that point. And we were really into Star Wars trivia. We were going around to different bars around the city and competing. And, we met doing Star Wars trivia. So it was a big thing for us. And it was very much sort of ingrained in the inception of our show. So, it's part of our show now. We do Star Wars trivia a little bit. We have a sort of segment at the end of every episode. But in preparing to launch our show, we knew what we were going to be doing. We hadn't actually launched yet at the time, but I saw Christian Harloff post that the celebration was going to include a Schmoedown tournament. And I was really excited because I I had obviously seen the matches before. I'm a huge Star Wars Rebels fan, so when I saw that Freddie Prinze Jr. and Sam Witwer were competing in past matches, I was really into those. So just kind of on a whim, I reached out, or I think I just replied to the tweet. I was like, hey, is there any way that I could get involved with this, or me and my teammate could get involved with this? I guess I was sort of envisioning that they would be doing like a teams thing, like I had seen with like the Force Bros when they were sort of doing competitions regularly. So he DM'd me right away, and we talked a little bit back and forth, and he basically was like, hey, I'd love to have you guys get involved, but I only have one spot. So if you guys want to talk about it, get back to me at some point soon, and maybe we can make it happen. So it sort of started from there. I think that the expectation was pretty low, to be totally honest. Like, now that I think about it, I'm like, when I look at like the caliber of the people that I was up against, like Joseph Scrimshaw and Molly Damon and Andrew DiMolante, I was like, I don't think they had any expectation for me to do even remotely well in the tournament, which is really funny. And I probably kind of went in with the same thought, but I studied up really hard and went in there, and it all kind of snowballed from there. It was a weird situation. It was a weird Star Wars celebration. It was only my second celebration, my second convention, and it enhanced it in a huge way. It was really exciting for me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So were you hooked right away? Because I know that you've done trivia for a long time, but were you hooked in the idea of the Schmoedown almost right away?
I think watching the Star Wars and watching Inner Geekdom competitions and things I was really into. That was really fun for me when it's, to be totally honest, I'm really not a film person. I'm not out here trying to claim to be, have any kind of taste really at all. So those are sort of more of the leagues that I gravitated towards in terms of actually having interest in that. I'm also not really a sports person, to be totally honest. So the fact that I kind of got into it at all is very much stemming from sort of where my interests lie in terms of movies and, fantasy, sci-fi type of things.
That's interesting. Not a film person and not much of a. I mean, that just thinking about it, everybody in the movie trivia Schmoedown. Obviously, it's called the movie trivia Schmoedown. You would think that they're involved in them, but it makes sense. Star Wars movies just make sense, so it kind of fits. Just thinking about the Star Wars movies. So
yeah. It's one of those things. I'm not a movie person. I'm a Star Wars person. I have to always kind of clarify that. So when it comes to things like when people want to like start getting really deep into like kind of some film talk with me, I'm like, I have a Star Wars podcast where we are just kind of, everything's kind of light and silly and loosey-goosey. There's not a lot of highbrow stuff that comes out of it on my end. So it's supposed to just kind of be this lighthearted, fun thing. But yeah, no, I've never claimed to be a film person, and I certainly don't now. I am a Star Wars fan. There's a difference.
Well, it works. It definitely works.
Nothing wrong with that. So then you got obviously drafted. We had a whole entire giant thing. And now it's, I mean, we went from it not being sportsy. Now it seems to be a little sportsy, but, KOrruption took you, Shannon, loving it, loving where you're at, hoping so.
Thank you. No, I'm very much enjoying being a part of the team. I mean, I don't know if you guys watched the Spectacular match recently, but like in the post-interview match, like they were like, oh, are you gonna like go in for the draft? I was like, I literally don't know what that means, because I just am like not a sports person. I was just like, I have a vague idea of what a sport draft is, so I don't know. And really at that point, immediately following Spectacular, I was in a really weird place where I had really high expectations for myself going into that match, and I was like incredibly depressed right afterwards. And I was just in a really dark place, and I had to sort of step away kind of from everything for a long time. So even while the draft was going on, I sort of had only a kind of vague recollection that it was happening on whatever Saturday it was happening. I wasn't really paying attention to it. I wasn't really expecting anything out of it. I really didn't know what to expect out of it. And then afterward, the fact, I was like, oh, well, KOrruption's kind of a big deal. That's a big thing. And then there were like trades and things happening, and I was like, I don't even know if I'm like allowed to celebrate, because I feel like, what if I get traded? How does that work? Do I get any consent in this, or does it just have like I truly just have I have no concept or any understanding of it. So I was just like, I'm just gonna kind of sit here and let all of this play out.
That's pretty amazing. Brian's a corruption guy through and through. Has been since he was introduced to the Schmoedown. We were at the draft, so we saw you get drafted, and it was really, really cool because we knew what it meant for corruption having not just Mike and Chance there and other, but having that Star Wars staple with you being there. And then and I also wanted to mention I was actually at Spectacular last year, so I was able to see you play live. And if I'm not mistaken, I think I was actually sitting behind a couple of your friends in the stand.
Probably.
Did you have a friend who was from Australia?
Yeah, my buddy Andy is from Australia, and he's such a good guy. It was so freaking funny because he showed up to the whatever the thing was before, where everybody like got to
the expo.
The expo, and he had Andy and I are buddies, and he's been a huge he's just been like a really big promoter of my show just for like no reason. That's awesome. We must have struck a chord or something with him because he's become one of our really good friends. And he's become sort of one of I have like kind of a handful of trivia coaches, and he's very much one of those where he'll send me the kind of deep cuts to sort of get me prepared for certain things. And we do a segment on our show called Caravan of Corrections, and he always is always sending in things. He'd be like, you guys said this, but I think you meant this. And we're like, yeah, you're probably right. Because again, it's just kind of a loose, drunk mess, my show. But it's Andy's a good guy. He's lovely. He came from Australia. And at the Fan Expo, he gave me this little pin, like one of those little enamel pins that had Harrison Dula and Chopper from Star Wars Rebels on it. And it just like, oh God, it touched me. I loved it so much. It's sitting on my bulletin board at work, which is lovely.
That's awesome.
No, Andy's a great guy. So you may have been sitting behind him. And my sister, I think, was sitting right next to him.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We were like in the third row in the middle section, and we kept hearing them talking about you. And I obviously knew who you was. And I think I was like, I wonder if they're with her, which was a really cool experience seeing them cheer and everything during your match. I will say, just before we move on, you crushed it that match. I know that you probably thought you may missed a few questions or whatever, but you did crush it. And I look forward to seeing you playing him again, because it looks like at this point there may not be someone who can hold up to him as much as you can, which we'll talk about later on, I'm sure. Let's get into this match, because not just the match itself, but the lead up to this match and the hype around it. Obviously, the Twitter interactions, which we have talked about multiple times on this show. Before we get to the actual questions and everything about that, we want to ask you about the dark side of Laura Kelly and how that kind of came out with Shannon involved. We were expecting it to an extent because corruption is corruption. That's who they are. But that promo of your individual promo, and then the one that Eric put together with the red saber and everything,
so good.
It was pure brilliance. And as fans, it like shocked us, and our mouths are on the floor and everything. How did it feel to shoot that and kind of channel that inner dark side as far as a Star Wars competitor?
Oh, good God, promos.
That's the one consistent thing that everyone says when we interview them.
I bet it's because it's a pain in the ass. I'm telling you. It like, okay, first of all, that I need to address one thing, because I got this question a lot, and I appreciate you guys not asking me this, but I think a lot of people's instinct when they saw my promo, kind of talking smack on Sean, was that it was written for me. Was that Shannon or someone had written it for that? I wrote that. That was all me. I didn't need help.
People
on
have been
that.
asking you that?
I've had a couple people make the assumption. Yeah,
that never crossed my mind.
I am fully capable of writing my own material. Thank you very much, everybody out there. But no, Shannon is lovely, and I'm sure she would have done a great thing if I had been like, I don't have time to do this. Can you just write me something? But I did that, and I was very proud of that, and very proud of how it turned out, because it took far more takes to shoot than I care to admit. All of it did. So it was nice that I was able to sort of take my time and be patient with it, and kind of learn some patience myself and shoot here at home. When you're shooting the weird little like pre-interviews in the studio, it's a whole different ball game, and it's just it was very much for me. It was very much deer in headlights when I had to do that back in October. That was pretty nuts. So it was different. I was really happy with how it turned out. I had a very different idea going in to this season of how I sort of wanted the whole dark side transition to go. When the pandemic happened and everything went virtual, we all had to adapt. We all had to sort of adapt our storylines. I also wasn't anticipating having to play so quickly. Most of the Star Wars matches don't happen until later in the year. I figured that would sort of be consistent. My work life is extremely busy right up until mid-June, and then it sort of tapers off for the rest of the year. So this came out of nowhere for me, and it was really a little bit stressful when Shannon first reached out and she's like, they're gonna do it, and I'm like, okay. But yeah, it was fun. I the thing that I had sort of written, and the thing that I had envisioned for a promo, for sort of a debut of this new character, ended up having to go very differently. But again, I wasn't the only one that had to adapt, and sort of go back and rewrite how everything was going to go. But I'm glad that I think we kind of pulled it off. I think it went well, and I agree. Glad that people are responding to it.
Yeah, I think you a little bit more than kind of pulled it off. I think it's working pretty well. Do you like? So I'm assuming you like the role you've established now as a dark character.
Oh, very much so. No, I feel very at home in it. It's been great, and Shannon's fantastic, and I've had a lot of fun. Sitting around just talking Star Wars. I mean, I had these like really long study sessions with Corruption with people, but a lot of it was just like sitting around like shooting the shit about Star Wars, and it was so awesome. Fun, and we had a blast. And so it was, like I said, this was something I'd been thinking about doing for a long time. I understand why you really kind of can't start out in my situation as like a dark side user. Mm-hmm. It might be sort of a weird beginning. Especially with how it all went with Celebration, since that was sort of my debut in the Schmoedown. Like there really isn't there's no room for character work or anything there. It really is just get in and do it and get the competition done and get out. So that was different. It all just kind of went sort of differently, I think, than it does for some of the other leagues.
I agree.
That's fun.
I love
go ahead.
I love your new nickname too. I think that one is so much better than it flows so well.
Thank you. I agree. I 100% agree. And I the Luminous served a purpose, and it was great. It was great for my sort of first year, but I'm also very happy with the new nickname. When I was sort of coming up with ideas of how I wanted this dark side transition to go, I had a different one in mind that totally sucked. So I'm really glad that it wasn't on me to like actually create the end all be all name that came from Christian. But I'm very happy with it. Yeah, I'm glad that people are responding to it.
Yeah, it's working really well. And like you had mentioned, you kind of have to build up for the turn, because then people are like, oh my God. And obviously the drafting from Shannon and Corruption definitely kind of plants the seeds, but and obviously, and then playing someone like Sean kind of helps in your first match back in 2020, and you can kind of embody that a little bit compared to what the Den has been doing this year. Speaking of the match, you didn't have a manager your first couple matches in the league. I imagine having Shannon and, like you mentioned, having Corruption in your corner helps incredibly going into it. Does it just kind of give you a sense of confidence going into the match more so than just kind of being on your own like you were the first couple matches?
Yeah, I would think that probably contributed to it. It's been really nice having Corruption just as just sort of this thing that has my back. And it was one of those things that I didn't really realize that I was missing in my first couple of matches. And, I mean, technically I sort of had a manager. It wasn't one of the sort of, Schmoedown legacy managers, but my podcast co-host Alice was sort of playing that role, and very much has sort of continued on as like one of my coaches for all of this. And it's been, it's been interesting. I think when I sort of came into it, I didn't really know what to expect. And I have a feeling that if this pandemic hadn't really hit, or if it had never hit, I don't know if I would have had the same experience that I've had with Corruption. I mean, there wasn't too long after we all sort of got locked down that we all, not all of us, but most of us on the team in the faction hopped on Zoom and had a little Zoom happy hour and kind of got to know each other. And that was really cool, getting to, these are all the people that are now my family and my cheerleaders, and they're depending on me to sort of cheer on them and help coach them through things. And it very is much a sort of family in that respect. And it's one that I very much appreciate being a part of.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's the one thing I think that almost every single person we've talked to has said is the teams have given them a family inside this, and it's only made things better, I think, experience-wise for you guys.
Yeah, 100%. I would definitely agree with that sentiment.
So going into the match in the first round, you had stated, I haven't missed a first round question, and you kept the streak going. Was there like any pressure you felt going into it? Like, okay, I need to keep this streak going. I've called it out that I haven't missed it.
I definitely felt like there was a target on my back, and that I put it there myself. I mean, I was just asking for it, and I think that John Ratzenberger question, I was like, oh man, you guys.
So was that the one? Was that the one that you kind of questioned, or was there something else in that round that you may have?
I knew it.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. Was there something else? I did question my spelling as soon as he held his up. I was oh my God, did I just blow this? Like, geez. I was fairly confident when I wrote it down. That was an interesting one, but I was like, they're gonna throw us a curveball. I just know it, and I think it's my fault that I caused this. I'm glad that I came out of it ahead, or came out of it alive. But yeah, that was I was definitely feeling the pressure going in, and I definitely feel like I was like, I'm asking for it a little bit, I think, with that.
Well, you lived up to it, and you went 11 for 11 and perfect round again. 2-point lead on Sean going into the second round. And then both of you kind of just showed up in the second round, right? You guys got categories that worked out in your favor. Did the same exact thing, 9 points in the second round for both of you. But the one thing we had talked about on our breakdown last week was your last question for Return of the Jedi about Luke going to see what he told R2 to go see Yoda. And we had been wondering if you knew what the answer was, but didn't know how to say it, or if you just wanted to make sure you knew the question and you didn't know it, and that's why you went to multiple choice.
So the reason I went to multiple choice was I was really trying to be strategic about it, because the thing is that I knew the answer, and if I had probably gone to a JTE, I probably could have gotten it just a couple extra seconds to think. I probably could have gotten it word for word, but I was too worried that I wasn't going to get it word for word. So it was really at that point I was ahead. I figured he would do well on round 2. But I was sort of in a place where I felt secure enough to drop a point just to make sure that I got the exact wording right. There are a lot of words in that answer.
Yeah.
And I think it would have been very easy for me to even stutter or flub it in some way. And I figured it would have been worth it just to take that risk out of it. So I knew I would recognize it as soon as they said it. And I did. So it ended up working out.
Did you, and I'm assuming you knew basically every question throughout that whole second round. Am I assuming wrong?
No, I think I did. I'm trying. Honestly, I haven't gone back and watched it yet. I really probably should. But I've been very much enjoying this week off that I've decided to give myself.
Yeah, you should.
So I need to go back and watch it. I don't remember not knowing any, so I'm fairly certain I did, and I remember being ready to steal.
That's why Brian and I talked how you were kind of just sitting there, and it almost looked like you had a smirk on your face, ready to kind of steal any question he may have answered wrong. Yeah, so that's why I wanted to make sure we asked that, because it was clear to us anyway that you were just ready to pounce and take any question that he may have missed.
Oh, see, that's the interesting thing about this all being virtual, and the fact that I was on camera for that, because normally you wouldn't be wouldn't be on me.
That's true.
For a lot of that, or maybe for some of it, but if we had been in the studio, so that's interesting. But yeah, I got to figure out a way how to control my face, because that's funny.
It was very subtle. Very subtle.
Yes.
Okay.
It wasn't like oh yeah, I know this is coming. It was just like maybe like a smirk. That was like,
I was ready. Yeah, I was excited.
Even that last one. I was just gonna say that last one that he had. I mean, first off, hearing Ellis have to repeat it a bunch of times. That wasn't even a problem.
Oh, the money one. Yeah. I knew it. And that was one of those things that scene is one of those that I've studied really hard. And know the name of that character, or the creature that they were selling as well, was sort of a deep cut. And that's one of those things where that's the question that I expect. But you have to sort of go into it knowing every part of that scene. I don't think I could tell you who the name of the character is that is speaking Huttese in that moment, who, I think that's the language that they actually say, that it's 7 whoopee whoopee. But yeah, that's one of those, for me, that was kind of a 101 thing. Like anytime someone's speaking in Huttese, you better know what they're saying.
Fair point.
Yeah. So the one thing I did want to ask before we move on to round 3 is, this was your first time experiencing the digital wheel. How did you feel about the digital wheel?
You know, there's the digital wheel gets a lot of hate, and I don't really get it. I kind of don't. I don't understand it. Like, I get it because it's like, I don't know. Do people think that it can be rigged in some way? I guess that's fair.
Everybody.
But like,
Everybody.
yeah. But I'm like, come on, you got to have more faith in this game and more faith in the people that are running it. The digital wheel really has never bothered me. I mean, my first match was a digital wheel, so it's one of those things I've just sort of gotten used to.
I think people freaked out also because the one match before
two lines,
it went right into the middle of 2, so it was like, it's rigged.
It's one of I don't know. It's fine. I get it. I didn't really have a problem with how they did the workaround in the play-in match, and I don't really have a problem with the digital wheel.
We
I
agree.
guess is good, but
we agree. Yeah. We think it's a good addition, and it keeps the wheel factor of it because you see it spinning rather than picking a number, and it's still a fun aspect of the game, whether it's digital or real. Going into round 3, though, you still had that 2-point lead, sticking with a couple questions left. And Sean just happened to get a couple categories that were very random and different compared to probably you had Who Said It and then Villains, 2 tough categories in the world of Star Wars. Did you happen to know those questions as well, especially the Death Star question?
I didn't know his 3-point question, and that's been a trend for me. That's been really freaking annoying. Is that I'll get the 5-pointer, but I will miss the 3. There's like a 50% chance that I will not know the 3-point question, which is so annoying. But I would have gone 2 on his 3-pointer as well. My thought process at the time was, I know that Death Star is in the first crawl because it's one of the words in all caps. I knew that Death Star was in the second crawl because it's one of the words that was in all caps in the first crawl, but then for some reason not in all caps in the Empire crawl. And and then I was thinking, I was like, well, I know that the beginning of the crawl in Jedi is Luke Skywalker has returned to his home planet of Tatooine for the blah, blah, blah Jedi, Han Solo, Jabba the Hutt, Gase, or whatever. It's like the longest sentence in the world that starts that one. And I couldn't think of what comes after that. And I was like, well, I can't think of any reason why the Death Star would be mentioned in that. So I would have said 2 as well. The crawls are on my list of things I need to work on before the next match. But I if you had asked me going in, like if crawls was a category, like how do you feel about it? I would have been like, I'm fine. I know it. I know. I got it this down. So I wouldn't have been stressed about it at all. But yeah, I knew, what was his 2-pointer? Do you remember off the top of your?
It was a Who Said It, and it was Palpatine
Anakin
who intends to kill Palpatine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I personally, for me, and I'm not someone who studies it. I mean, I watch the movies. Star Wars is like the greatest thing ever. But to me, I was like, that's a 2-pointer? Like, that's kind of a hard question to me. I don't know how it felt like for you, but it felt like it was definitely harder than a 2-pointer, or even like acting as a 1-pointer for round 1.
Huh. Yeah, no, I knew it, so I wasn't sure kind of where it should fall in the Who Said It?
It's just us, Jake.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I'll keep that in mind.
But all right, so match over. Obviously, you win. Next, you're next. I was gonna say next week, but it's not. Definitely not.
It's like 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, I know. Well, actually, before I do that, are you enjoying it being online like this instead of, I don't know, being in person?
I'll tell you this. I don't know how much I enjoy the online part of it. I mean, I guess it's sort of comfortable. We all have home field advantage now. We all get to, be in our own environment. Like, this is the exact position that I'm usually sitting in when I'm studying, which is not an advantage that you get when you're playing in the studio and there are lights and you're like, Jesus, like Christ. So it's, it's definitely, I think it's advantageous for everybody, but in that, there's no advantage because everybody has it. So I can't say that I mind it. I also don't mind it because I'm a bit of an anxious flyer, and I am required to get on an airplane when I want to go play a Schmoedown match in studio or out in LA. So I'm very happy to avoid that stressor of having to get on an airplane and get out there, and also avoid the expense because I'm quite tall. I'm about 6 feet tall, and I'm all leg. So I'm all about like those extra leg room seats, which don't come cheap. So I'm sort of, this is overall a much cheaper experience for me. It's much more economical. So I have no problem with it.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So for my spinoff, your next opponent being either Ace or Knapsack. Is there anyone that, like, I was saying to Jake, I mean, Ace you don't know much about, but he clearly knows it. But there's something about being able to take on Knapsack just because it's him. Do you have like a preference? A feel for either? I mean,
it's hard to say. Yeah, it's hard to say. It would be to be honest, it would be an honor to get to play Ken Knapsack. He's obviously a legend. There's no denying that. He's a Schmoedown legend. I think he would be great. I would have a lot of fun with it, I think. The thing with Ace is he's a nice guy. I've chatted with him just a little bit. And he had the hardest time of it when it came to the play-in match. I mean, I had 3 weeks notice before my match that this tournament was happening, which means he had 2 weeks notice that it was happening. And, you know, I don't know how most of the players function, but I don't generally just stay on top of all my stuff all the time. I'm not looking at it all the time. Generally we would all get more notice than something like this. And I would put together a study schedule for myself that was 2 months long, where I would be spending, 3 to 4 days on each movie with breaks and stuff in between. And so he didn't have an easy time of it, and he did as well as he could. And I was really impressed with how he did, given that little amount of notice that he had to prepare. Now, granted, I know he played an Intergeekdom match, so maybe he had maybe he had a little bit of the advantage in terms of being more prepared, say, than Josh did, or even than any of us did. But he had no easy task ahead of him, and I was impressed with how he played and how he came out. So I think it would be great to get to play him too. And I think Ken's in a weird place where we're just not really, he's just kind of the wild card in this competition. I mean, I just don't know what to expect. I don't know if he's pulling all of our legs and he actually is buckling down and sitting at home and taking advantage of the quiet and studying while there's not much else to do during this quarantine, or if he really is just going in and winging. I truly don't know what to think. It could go either way.
Yeah, Knapsack's 100% a wild card. I agree.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I'm looking forward to watching their match. I'm very much looking forward to next week to see how Demolanta stacks up against Scrimshaw. I think that's gonna be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, that was our next question. We wanted to talk about these upcoming matches. I know you probably can't reveal or say who you expect to win, but if you can, Demolanta and Scrimshaw, two very powerful, players in Star Wars Schmoedown, and I expect it to be a match just like you and Sean. A lot of people are saying it might go to OT and they might not miss, and if they get the categories they want, do you have someone in mind you think may outlast the other as far as Scrimshaw or Demolanta?
I 100% agree with the sentiment that they might go into like a sudden death overtime situation. I think that's extremely possible. I think it's probably, of all the matches, it's the most likely one that could potentially happen in. I don't know. Whether I'm allowed to say or not, I don't actually know, but I'm not, it's one of those things where it could go either way, because I think Scrimshaw definitely knows his stuff. He's definitely demonstrated that. Andrew Demolanta is just like disgustingly hungry for it, though, he's just an animal at this point. That I think that he's one that is easy to maybe underestimate, especially if you're just looking at his record, which I don't think is reflective of all of his ability. He's a great player and he knows his stuff, and honestly, I think if I had to play him again, and if he lost, I would be like legitimately afraid that he would like hire someone to kill me. Like, I mean, like, not just like, I'm not talking about like Brandon the Hitman Hannah, like an actual hitman. I'm not even sure. Like he just seems, it's a little scary. So I'm I'm thinking he's going to do well no matter how it ends up turning out, but I wouldn't be surprised if he comes out ahead because he's just so hungry for it. And I'm not sure where Joseph Scrimshaw's headspace is at with that sort of motivation, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the heavyweight of the bracket. We looked at it and we couldn't believe that it was Scrimshaw versus Demlanta. I know there's very few names to pick from in Star Wars, but yeah, in the first round, which is crazy to think about. The other one, though, Molly Damon versus Adam Witt. I'm expecting you to kind of be rooting for Molly in that one just because she's the other female in the bracket, and seeing a Molly versus Laura Kelly matchup in the final could be very cool to see in general in Schmoedown.
Yeah, no, that would be really fun, obviously. And I love Molly to death. She's awesome. I got to meet her. I mean, I met her a couple times before, but I actually got to spend time with her back in December before Spectacular. So she's great. I know she knows her stuff. I know she did really well at the placement test at Dragon Con this past year, which is a sign that she really is sort of up to snuff on her stuff. Adam Witt's performance in his debut, I was far less impressed by. But you know, the two of them are sort of going in with the same record. I don't like Molly's another one. I don't think her record is reflective of her knowledge. I think she knows her stuff. Yeah. And I think we're all in for a treat to see how it goes down between the two of them. So we'll see. I know that, you know, I know Witt and Sullivan went into their match with little notice. And I can't imagine how stressful that would be. I mean, I just told you, like, I spend 2 months getting ready for these matches. If someone were to call me when I was like hours away from a match and be like, do you want to come play today? I would be like, no. Like, I think I would just be like, no. Like, I know there's no way. Like, I think I would just politely decline. So, I mean, good on them for getting their heads in the game and getting up there and playing with that little notice. But, I don't think his debut is quite as impressive. I think she is much more likely to know her stuff than I would think for him. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. Who knows? Yeah. I could be wrong. I feel like there's gonna be an upset somewhere, you know? Like
I'm with you. Yeah.
It's gonna happen somewhere. So I think she's probably would she be the favorite going in? I would think she'd be the favorite going in.
I would think so too, just because she's married to the champion and she lives. They're
training together.
Yeah.
So possibly, probably, and then like you had mentioned, Adam Witt's previous match wasn't the most successful of matches for him. So I would expect
had a good
Molly.
I mean, I'll give him Dulce Doping. He knew that, and that's good on him.
Yeah.
I
don't know. I mean, the women in this league specifically, I think it's funny because I feel like when you bring up this league, other than Damon, your name and probably now Molly's name come first. And that says a lot. I mean, because you guys are kind of kicking ass. So
thank you. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It's been great. And it's one of those things where I really try to balance the fact that, like, you don't need to be an expert on this stuff to be a Star Wars fan. I don't think that that's the case at all. I don't look down on anyone who doesn't know this stuff. And, you know, I don't look down on the fact that there really is just the two women playing in the league. There's nothing wrong with that. So I really do try to balance the fact that, like, you know, it's really exciting that there are women playing in this league. I think it's great, and I'm excited to be a part of it. But, you know, when it comes to the fandom side of things, I don't want people to think that, like, I think I'm some kind of superior fan because I know this stuff. That's not the case at all. You know, if you like Star Wars movies, you are a Star Wars fan in my mind. There's no contest that required. But I do have a lot of fun competing in this league and kind of making it a contest in this context.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, well, moving on from your match, let's go and talk just a little bit of Star Wars before we move on. And I was listening to your most recent episode on Force Toast, and you guys were talking about the Mandalorian room of characters and all the plethora of names that have been thrown around for this upcoming season. And we had asked Alex and Molly this question when we had them on a few weeks ago. But if there was one character that has been mentioned so far as rumors go that you want to see in season 2, who would it be?
That's hard to say because, you know, I have some favorite characters that I would love to see come back. I think I mentioned already that I'm a huge Star Wars Rebels fan. Mm-hmm. If any of them were to make any kind of appearance, that'd be cool. I know Ahsoka is sort of the biggest rumor, might as well be confirmed at this point. I wish they would just come out and say it, to be honest. But I think that's probably the most exciting prospect. I'm sort of on the fence when it comes to the Rosario Dawson casting. I know that there's these,
Me too.
these allegations against her family and this former employee. There's this like kind of ongoing, not a lawsuit, but there are these ongoing charges that haven't really played out anywhere official yet. So it's hard to know what to believe. But it's sort of disappointing that controversy is sort of surrounding this whole thing that really should be great. It should be a really exciting announcement that we're going to get a live action Ahsoka, but it's just unfortunate that it's being kind of tainted with these weird allegations surrounding her family. So I'm hoping that at least maybe something plays out in terms of confirming whether or not there's any truth to any of that.
Yeah.
But I really am excited about the prospect of seeing her in live action. I think it could be really cool. And especially kind of coming off of, season 7 of the Clone Wars and how that got such high viewership. Like even, I think I heard higher than higher than the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. Amazing. So I think that's great. I think it's going to be amazing. Regardless, I hope that we get a little bit more female representation in Mandalorian season 2. I was a little bit disappointed by some of the lack thereof in season 1. Season 1 was fantastic and I loved it, but I need a little bit more than just Gina Carano. There need to be more female faces on the screen for me to really kind of get on board. So I'm hoping that that's something that they listened to when it came to season 1, some of the maybe criticisms of it.
Cool. All right, Brian. Well, shall we get to our Star Wars segment? Star Wars favorites?
Our little speed round?
Yeah, well, it was supposed to be a speed round, and then finding out we debuted this segment last week with Ace, and it's not really rapid fire. It just happens to be another conversation for Star Wars. It's a bunch of Star Wars favorites, and we go off of just, we have like 10 or 12 different categories that we're just going to bring up, and you're basically just going to name them off, and we can have a discussion about them. And so the first one, very simple, favorite Star Wars movie.
Rogue One.
If it's simple.
Ooh,
like nice.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, it sounds like we already know. Favorite of the series, TV series.
Star Wars Rebels. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. I'll take that.
Yeah. Favorite Star Wars game.
Ooh, I'm not a gamer. I have to bow out on that one. I have no answer.
That's fair.
Is there anyone that's piqued your interest? I'm curious. Though.
So the thing is I'm not a gamer in that I also don't really have any like current consoles. I have a Nintendo 64.
Nice.
I have heard that there's a really fun X-Wing game somewhere on Nintendo.
Yes, I have it. It's
okay.
So fun.
I would love to pursue that at some point. It's incredibly low on my priority list. So.
Yeah, that's fair. Fair.
I wish I had an answer for you. I mean, Jedi Fallen Order sounds amazing, and on our show, Alice did the sort of breakdown of it because she played it and really liked it, and I thought it sounded great. I just buying a console and learning how to play and kind of getting into it's just not on my.
It's a whole other side of the human body playing video games. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Favorite book of the Star Wars series books.
I have a new favorite. I recently read Dark Disciple, and I just fell head over.
So good.
That's
so
like
good.
My favorite.
Oh,
so
God.
Good.
It's fantastic, and it's one of those things where was this supposed to be like a rapid fire thing? Should I not?
No. We thought it was last week, but it doesn't turn out that way. So we're totally cool.
because we end up wanting to talk about it too. So it doesn't work.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the thing with Dark Disciple. I really did not want to read it because when it comes to like the prequel era, it's not my favorite era of Star Wars, and it's not any era that I really care to explore any further when it comes to the deep dive. Like story type of things. When it comes to comics, when it comes to books, it's far less interesting to me than what's going on really in any other era. So my thing with that book is that I put off reading it for that reason for a long time. And then finally I decided to circle back to it because I had so many people tell me that it was so good. And I was a big fan of Lost Stars. And they're like, if you like Lost Stars, you really should check out Dark Disciple. So I finally got around to it, and I just I could not put it down. It was one of those things I had to go see, I didn't have to. One of my friends was performing in some improv show that I wanted to go see. Am I convincing? So I went and saw it after work one day, but there was like a 4-hour period in between the actual start of the show and me getting off of work. So I went and sat in a Starbucks for like 4 hours and just like powered through this book. I just could not put it down. It was so damn good. So yeah, Dark Disciple, definitely a favorite, and newly my favorite because I only just read it recently.
So good.
Yeah,
That's my
it does.
favorite.
It does make me miss the fact that we weren't able to see that in the Clone Wars, though, because that was originally supposed to be the plan for that
You know,
story.
and I've heard that argument, but my whole thing is that you get a much deeper story when you.
That's true. It's very true.
And
Very true.
I try to think about what it would have been like if they had played it off on screen, and I just can't come up with any. And not to knock the creators, because I'm sure they could have pulled it off in a great way, but I just can't see any advantage to them doing it rather than doing it in the book. I loved getting to spend time in these characters,
Yes.
especially in the head of Quinlan Vos. I thought that was just fantastic.
Very
So
true. Good point.
Love that.
All right. Favorite Star Wars character?
You know, I have a new answer for that one too, because for a long time it was Harrison Dula, and it still kind of is. I still love
She's a badass.
I love that character to death, and I kind of bounce back and forth between her and Kanan sometimes. But this is weird because I wasn't like the biggest fan of The Rise of Skywalker, but I loved every single thing that they did with the Kylo Ren Ben Solo character in that movie. It was sort of the one component straight through that I had zero problems with. So I really love that character. I would say kind of just where I'm at with things, and the fact that I haven't rewatched Rebels in a while. That Ben Solo is probably the current favorite.
Cool.
That works. Favorite species?
Oh, that's weird. I really haven't given that much. I really haven't given that much thought.
Yeah.
That's the one everyone goes, oh. So
That's so freaking funny. It's hard to say. I'll do this. I had only just recently learned the names of they're kind of like dogs that are in the Tusken Raider camp in Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
And I had to go searching for this answer, which is sort of why I'm into these maybe that's why I'm into the species right now. But it took me a while looking through reference books trying to find it. But these now I'm going to totally blank on the name. I think they're Massives is the name of the character, but they're these sort of dog-like mixed with a dinosaur or lizard type of creature that you can see. They're like barking and fighting over something in the attack scene in Attack of the Clones.
Attack of the Clones, yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Anakin
That's cool.
Raider, the Tusken Raider camp.
Favorite planet?
That's another good one. You know, I've always been into my big city living, so I'll go with Coruscant on that one.
That's what Ace said as well last week. So we're 2 for 2 on Coruscant. Yeah.
Favorite faction. So like favorite type of
group
of people.
I do enjoy the Rebels. Rogue One sort of being my favorite movie. I think the Rebellion and that sort of age of Rebellion is kind of my favorite era, my favorite faction, I would say.
Makes
if
sense.
That counts.
Yeah,
no,
totally,
that counts.
Totally does. Favorite era, and we already know which one isn't her favorite era.
Yeah, I would probably go with the same answer. That age of Rebellion, that age where we have the Ghost Crew kind of leading up to the head of A New Hope. That's kind of my favorite era.
Cool.
All right, and last one is favorite lightsaber color.
Ooh, I gotta go red right now.
Yeah,
I gotta stick with red right now. For a long time, it was blue, and I don't need that in my life anymore. I'm gonna go red.
Yeah.
She went all dark on me. She went all dark. Wow. All right.
Yeah.
Well, Brian, that's interesting. We didn't guess that. We did not guess blue. I think you had said gold, right?
I guessed gold.
And I guessed white.
The yellow
I
gold.
guessed white. I was throwing a curveball and I guessed white, but we're both wrong on that one. So, so before we get out of here and before we let you go, Laura, we wanted to mention Force Toast, of course, your Star Wars podcast. And for anybody out there who doesn't listen and doesn't really know what Force Toast is there, a summary of what the podcast is that you can give to our viewers or watchers?
Sure, we drink wine and talk about Star Wars. That's really that's the elevator pitch.
Perfect.
Yeah, the full title of our show is Force Toast, a Star Wars happy hour. It's an every other week show. We try to keep it under 2 hours, and we drink wine, talk about whatever's in the news, do recaps of whatever is out, whether it's books, comics, movies, TV series, and we do a little bit of Star Wars trivia at the end, and that's kind of the elevator pitch for it.
Sweet, that's awesome.
Thanks.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We had an absolute blast, and we were looking forward to it and lived up to it. And we can't wait to see what you do in the Star Wars tournament going forward, and just in the Schmoedown in general, because the Star Wars division, we've mentioned it multiple times how the regular league is kind of obviously the draw, but the Achilles heel is really the Star Wars and IG leagues of the Schmoedown. And so we're very excited to see what your future holds for Schmoedown.
Thank you. Me too. I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll talk to you soon, and good luck in your next match.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.
Of course. No All right, Brian. Great interview there with Laura Kelly, part of KOrruption, and Shannon's got a good one. Shannon has got a good one in sight there for the Star Wars division.
She knew really she had a good one.
Yeah, and definitely, and it definitely proved very well in this last match, and she went up against Sean Sullivan and proved that she wasn't just someone who was going to come up in the league once and fall back down. She's here to stay, and she's here to make some noise. And now that she's part of KOrruption, the noise is very strong.
Very loud.
So it was very, very good conversation. Then that was awesome. That was really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anytime we get to talk to the Star Wars competitors, I think you and I get a little extra giddy. So
yeah, we could probably never compete in the division ourselves, but Star Wars to us is a baby, and it's we enjoy it and have fun doing it, and so yeah, that was an awesome conversation to talk to her and kind of get details about her ins and outs of the league. So we definitely ran over time, but not that we didn't want to. We enjoyed the very lengthy conversation we had with Laura, but we have a short amount of time here to kind of preview what we're going to talk about next, and that is the two matches that are here coming up this week. We'll move on from Star Wars just quickly here because we kind of talked about the most recent match with Scrimshaw, or the upcoming match with Scrimshaw and Alonza. Let's talk about this IG match very quickly here. We have Ben Goddard versus Jim Vova. We have the Den versus the Rockstars. Big match. The first IG match we've seen here in a while. The kickoff of the IG tournament. As we mentioned, it's going to premiere on YouTube on Wednesday. And for myself, we don't know much of Vova in IG. We know what Ben is capable of, and we saw which is now officially up on YouTube. We saw the Lord of the Rings exhibition match. He showed up really well in that match for Lord of the Rings. Kind of letting us know that, hey, he may know more about IG than we first believed. For myself, I'm taking Ben in this match, not just because of that reason, but I think he's just someone who has a hot hand. Like, he's had a hot hand all year long. He seems to have things going in his favor. Kate really knows what she's doing as a manager with him specifically. And so I'm excited to see what they both do, but I'm taking Ben in this match.
Yeah, I was with Ben the whole entire time. And can I say I absolutely love, no offense to Vova, but when Kate did her preview and stumbled on his name, I was like, thank you. I'm not the only one that struggled with it for a while. But I don't know, because I was fully Ben. And then Vova kind of made this promo where he mad dog.
Yeah, it's up on our Twitter. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. This guy, he came with fire. He came with heat. And, you have the ones where, you have people that are kind of like, oh, yeah. You're like, oh, they'll probably do good. He came with a level of confidence that I was kind of like, oh, I don't know who might win this now.
I agree.
So I'm still honestly trying to decide, because we've seen Goddard so far, and I think he's blown all of our expectations out of the water. But Vova seems like he's going to come in and grab the throat as quick as possible. So I honestly don't know.
It's very difficult for me to vote against or to go up against Roxy. I think that she's brilliant. I think she might be the best working manager in the league. She is so involved with her players, and she's very hungry for a win. And Vova, I'm sure, is very hungry for a win because he did lose the team match that he performed in earlier this year. So it's very hard for me to vote against Roxy in this situation because, especially after seeing her for Josh Cavedo and the way that went up as far as cheering him on and supporting him virtually, I can see her doing the same and even more so with Vova. But I just feel like Ben has got the hot hand, man. I feel like he's the guy that kind of just like it almost feels like a Kevin Smith situation. I'm not saying he's going to come out and dominate the league, but someone who
has Parker next. So
yeah, and I just feel like he's someone who a lot of people may be counting out because he's Ben Goddard and he's kind of like, he's Bagel Boy on SCN and like all that type of stuff. But he continues to prove us wrong and he continues to play with a chip on his shoulder. And that doesn't seem to stop.
Yeah. I mean, if you had to twist my arm right now, I'd probably go with him right now. Because I feel like every single time I'm on Twitter, he's talking about how he's studying. So if that's the case, then we know he's not screwing around. And I don't think he has been since the beginning. So yeah, it's going to be a battle.
It's going to be fun. And as I mentioned up top, guys, we will have a reaction to this matchup later this week. And our live breakdown is more than likely going to happen on Wednesday. You can find that right here on YouTube. We're still figuring out the exact time because of the Star Wars match that airs on Twitch. But you can also find it on Twitter live. It'll pop up on your timeline and you're following us on Twitter. We're at Schmoedown POV. That is our Twitter handle. And we go live on Twitter and YouTube at the same time. More access for people because Twitter seems to be a little bit more accessible for some people sometimes. And so you can find it there. But quickly, we didn't mention who we think will win this Star Wars match. We talked about it in depth with Laura. But for me, for the longest time, I had Scrimshaw going in this match. But hearing Laura speak about it and a lot of other people around the league as far as Alonza, it really is hard to go up against Alonza in this match because he's kind of Scrimshaw. He does Force Center with Ken, right? He's in Star Wars every single week. It's kind of a part of him. But Alonza, he's in Schmoedown. Like he has Beyond the Schmoedown podcast. He does reactions with his wife. So he's like involved in it and continuously watching and kind of being involved with the league. I just feel like that's going to give him the slight advantage in this match, especially watching the virtual stuff and kind of preparing that way. I feel like it's hard to go up against Alonza at this point.
Yeah, it's funny because my brain keeps telling me pick Scrimshaw. But I think
exactly same thing.
But like, I think almost that just might be because I know kind of around what Scrimshaw is, but there is a sense of hunger from Alonza that everyone inside the Schmoedown has made it a point to say. And if it's that widely spread and that many people are talking like that, I mean, there must be something to it. So, I mean, my head is telling me to pick Scrimshaw, but my gut is telling me Alonza is going to come and take this. But I don't know why. I feel like this will be a 1-point match and it will literally be coming down to the fact that someone went to multiple choice. And I honestly think that's if I had to guess, someone's going to go to multiple choice, need that one, and that one is going to be the one, that 1 point is going to be what leans the victory to someone.
I'm with you. All right. Well, I think that is it for this week. Should we run through the faction standings before we get out of here quickly?
Sure. I got it quick right here for you.
Go ahead and
first
throw it
place
up on the screen too. Here we go.
Oh yeah. So we've got first place, the Finstock Exchange, 16 points. Swag at 13 points. The Den is in third place with 12. Burning Droogs are in fourth place with 6. Rockstars are in fifth place with 6. Corruption is now in sixth place with 5 points off of that win. Seventh place is the Usual Suspects with 4. Eighth is the Dungeon with 4 points. And our new ninth place is the Quirky Mercs with 3 points. And so we know. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. You're good. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so we know that we could see a bigger lead coming off of Finstock Exchange with the Demon to Star Wars match. We could see a change from Inner Geekdom. I mean, Corky Mercs.
The Corky Mercs here with Scrimshaw could definitely get a lot of points here if Scrimshaw can find a way to get a knockout in some capacity. 4 points for them could knock them all the way up to 4th place, and that could be massive here. Yeah,
by the end of this week, this standings, that 4 to 9 could look completely different.
Yeah, so, and as far as IG goes, like you mentioned, the Den has a chance to obviously tie Finstock Exchange if Ben can find a way to get a knockout. But Roxy could fight their way up all the way above the Burning Jerks and put a heavy lead in front of them for 4th place and be sole possession there if Vova is able to get a win as well. So a lot of things could change. A lot of things.
These standings will look probably a little bit more drastically different coming by the end of this week.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so before we get out of here, we do have some news here on a certain point of view, and it's very, very exciting from our end. Something that kind of came up quickly that what we've been talking about for a little bit here behind the scenes. We're gonna have a new co-host on the show, guys, and we are very, very excited to be joined by this person. It is someone who we always have constant communication with inside the Schmoedown. Follower of us and very big supporter of us, and we cannot thank them enough for being a supporter of us, not just on social media, but as far as the show goes in general. And we're kind of going to be doing a fun little tease throughout the week as far as who it may be, and they will be on the show next week. We record on Sundays, and this said person will be joining us next week. We're still looking at having a guest per usual, and we're going to be eyeing either Damon or Scrimshaw to join us to talk about their match. We've been on a roll about doing this lately, and hopefully we're able to get one of them with everything going on in the world. But yeah, we wanted to make sure we mentioned it, and we're going to have a cool, fun, exciting co-host with us. I know Brian is excited just as much as I am.
Very excited.
Because it's someone who we talk to on a regular basis on social media and stuff. So there's your first little tease as far as teases go. We
quite love their opinions. So
yes. So it's going to be very fun. And the show's not going to change. It's just going to be 3 different opinions talking Schmoedown, and this said person might have a little bit more of an inside look at Schmoedown than we do. There's a second tease for you.
Stop it.
There's a second tease for you. So
but yeah, that's the finish.
Yeah, I know. It's fun to tease the audience, Okay, so before we get out of here, a rundown of what's going to happen here throughout the next few weeks for a certain point of view. Show lives on Mondays, guys. It's going to be up on Mondays, YouTube, audio as well. You can see all the platforms right above Brian's head right there. Apple, Spotify, Anchor, Google, anywhere you can find a podcast, this show lives. And as I've mentioned multiple times over the last couple of weeks, our Star Wars match breakdowns are live on Thursdays, 4:30 p.m. Pacific time. Star Wars breakdowns are YouTube and Twitter. They will also be posted to audio later if you're much more of a listener, so you can find them on the same platforms. And we're going to be doing the same thing for the IG tournaments as well. Those will most likely be a day beforehand, being that these matches live on YouTube and we have access to them ahead of time. So we'll end up doing that. And so those will also be posted to all the podcast platforms. And then because these live on YouTube, you'll see reactions from us and play-alongs. Those will be back for the time being through the IG tournament until we're able to get back in studio for these matches and getting regular matches. We're going to be able to get those up on Friday per usual. That's when you'll see our play-alongs. So very exciting time for us here, Brian. A lot to look forward to. And a few weeks ago, we didn't really know what was going to happen with everything, but these tournaments and how it's been working out as far as Twitch and YouTube has kind of been a little bit of a success for us.
Yeah, we are getting right back into that normal swing of things of Schmoedown being a twice a week type thing.
Yeah, so it's very, very exciting. Again, guys, look out for everything we have going on here. We can't thank Laura Kelly for joining us. That was such a blast to talk to her. Someone we've been looking forward to have on the show, and it worked out very, very well. Always excited to have her back if she ever wants to join. But for now, that is a certain point of view, guys. Number 17. We've gone 17 weeks strong, and we don't have any sign of slowing down. So for Brian, for myself, we are a certain point of view. Again, find the show every Monday, and make sure you guys check us out on social media. So thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you guys next week.